Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NOLA Theatre Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and I'm here broadcasting, as it were, over the NOLA Theatre Folk Facebook group, the theatrecriticism.com Facebook page, and my own YouTube channel every Monday, pretty much. Now, there are some Mondays that, of course, we don't broadcast. This is a show dedicated to theater in New Orleans, and we started this up a couple of years ago when COVID set in 2020, and it's now 2023, and we're still doing it. Now, in the past, we broadcast on Mondays and Fridays because there were no theaters opening. Now that theaters are open again, we are broadcasting on a Monday night basis. That's the traditional night that most are dark, and also, of course, the night that many of the actors and directors and other theater makers would be available. So it makes perfect sense for me to continue holding the shows on Monday nights. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a very extraordinary show, one that some of you may have recalled seeing last year at the Jefferson Performing Arts Center. That was, of course, Fly. And Fly is a historical drama based on the Tuskegee Airmen, who were the first Black pilots to fly during World War II. They were the first pioneers, if you will, groundbreaking pioneers in that regard, and had a lot to prove for themselves as well as to all of the military people involved. This is a play by Trey Ellis and Ricardo Kahn, and last year's production for JPAS was produced by JPS, but also done in coordination with Tommye Myrick, who I think also done some producing on this as well, but she definitely was the director. And I'd like, before we do anything else, to bring in the director and let her talk a little bit about the previous production, and then, of course, the new production that's at the BB Stage Door Canteen. You can see BB Stage Door Canteen is in the upper right-hand corner of your screen tonight, and that's because we're going to be talking about Fly. So, Tommye, I'd like to welcome you to the show. You've been on this before. You know how it goes. But again, last year's show was quite exceptional. And again, I know that Dennis Asaf wanted to do some work with Black History Month, and he brought you on board to bring it. And you really, I would say, really hit it out of the ballpark with everything that you did. Of course, we all thought that would probably be the last time we got to see it. Again, it's in a theater. The JPAC seats about 1,000 people, but because of the nature of that auditorium, a lot of the close intimacy of the current production that we'll talk about at BB Stage Door Canteen was sort of lost on the audience. The story came through brilliantly, and there were some other aspects of that we'll discuss in just a second before we bring the other cast members on. And by the way, we will have almost the entire cast tonight. We've got one who is unfortunately working on another production and could not join us, but he did extend his regrets. But we've got almost all of the 7 members, and most of the people that you got last year, Tommye, have returned to reprise their roles. Is that not correct?
That is very, very, very correct. And, I tell you, somehow, even when we did it that last year, we in our hearts felt that was not the end of it. We never stopped thinking that this was the end of Fly. In terms of our production of Fly, I will say that shortly after we did the JPAS performance last February, we were reached. The World War II Museum reached out to us. And from that day forth, we've been in negotiations all the way up until September, when we closed the deal for this month, for February.
So, and again, to me, I just can't think of a more perfect place to have this show play during Black History Month than the World War II Museum, because it is a national museum dedicated to all the soldiers who participated in World War II. But more to the point, it seems to me to be something that they could actually, I'd almost like to say archive, that they could bring this out every year and it would reach people it had not reached before. In terms of visitors and things of that sort. I think that it's something that is quite remarkable. And again, I know you did a wonderful job in the directing. I would imagine you put a lot of these so-called soldiers through their paces as you do. But I know that there were some differences. And again, I think that anybody who saw the production at JPAC for JPAS last year should note that as I mentioned, the intimacy of this production is much greater. You really feel it a lot more coming off the stage. You really feel the actors greater depth, but also you are perhaps missing a little something that you had expected to reprise, but because of illness, you weren't able to do it, and that was the tap griot, right? That was
exactly who. By the way, that particular role was created by Trey Ellis and Ricardo Khan as the emotional thread of all of these military men, especially the Tuskegee Airmen, who really at that time could not really show their true emotions, and so therefore the emotional thread of the whole piece was the tap griot, who became ill 2 days before we opened here, and so we had to rework everything.
But I have to say, I know that the original intent was to have the tap griot, and that you wanted to reprise that. It brings up all the other images, that have to do with slavery and the civil rights movement, and et cetera. But I have to say that I think the story of the Tuskegee Airmen themselves was actually enhanced a little bit by just being mostly about them and not having your attention drawn to anything else. It really, to me, made it much more compelling. Not that the tap griot did not have other compelling aspects, but I have to say that I really enjoyed it. And I didn't so much miss the tap griot as I thought that, oh my goodness.
You froze, or is that me?
Would want to have, but again, I'm just saying that if you were concerned that it might have been missing its mark because of the absence of the tap griot, I do not believe it really hurt the production overall. That in a sense that I actually followed the story of the black Tuskegee Airmen pilots. Then I might have been distracted a little bit more by that, and thought more about the overall scheme and arc, which I'm certain that's why Trey Ellis and Ricardo Khan had put that in there. But
well, I tell you, there were several people who saw the original production at JPAS last year who were also there this weekend when we opened, and said that the intimacy, the exact same thing that you're saying, the intimacy, the fact that they could follow the story more closely. And so I have to give that to the actors as well, who really, once we reworked the play without the tap griot, really rose to the occasion.
Well, let me go ahead and bring them in. I think I've got a pretty much a full house tonight, and let me first bring in is that Jemez? Is that right? I want to make sure I get the right pronunciation.
Jemez Alexander.
Now, Jemez, I don't think your video is on. Before I bring you in, I want to make sure that you're there. He plays Chet Simpkins, and I wanted to see. And again, we may have to wait for him. Let me, if he's there, I'll add him right now. But I think that he's only got audio now, so he needs to engage his. Okay, is that the way it's going to be tonight?
Yes, because I'm driving from another show. Sorry.
Okay, I thought you might be able to have your video on, but I appreciate you being with us. You play the pivotal role of Chet Simpkins, who is seen both in modern times. I say modern times, and for the 2008, I guess 2009 inauguration of Barack Obama. So that's more recent times than, of course, World War II. And then you play Chet as a young man. And, of course, this is before he's gone through the war, et cetera. So we know that he's going to survive the war if we pay close attention at the very beginning, that he's being honored by Barack Obama as one of the Tuskegee Airmen. Again, Jamez, I know that you were in the original production. Is it different playing the role this time for you in some way? I mean, resonate more for you after having done it last year?
Definitely, definitely. I think I speak for most actors. After you do your final closing performance of any run, you always have that, ooh, if I could do it just one more time, if I can do it one more time, I would do this, I would do that, because the character ministers to you even more so. So yes, this time it's different. My connection to him and just the through line of the underlining fear, not just his bravery, because we see that he's a good flyer, but the fear that must have been underlining him definitely became more true in between this production and the last.
And I want to bring in, your fellow pilots, as it were. You've got Michael C. Forrest in here now. We also have Brian Eglin. Let me see if I've got Brian. I know there he is. Yeah, I didn't see him at first. There's Brian. And we're going to also bring in, again, Jamez, we can't see you, but we can hear you. So we'll have the fourth member, and that's going to be Atlantis, plays J. Allen Braithwaite. And again, we've got all the pilots in the room now. All I guess you might call us, we're all in the hangar tonight. And again, I want to thank you all for being with us. Again, I think that just about everybody who's in the room now had been part of the original cast, correct?
With the exception of Bryant. Bryant is actually replacing Donald Jones,
and he was busy.
Of The Color Purple.
Right, he was busy the last few weeks,
yes,
so
very busy.
he was not able to rehearse with you and direct The Color Purple, which was, again, for those of you who saw it, they will take my word for it, I guess. But and I'm sure you were there yesterday too, weren't you, Tommye? It was an extraordinary production, and one that I hope that as many people got to see as possible. One of the best things that Le Petit had ever done. We're going to bring in some of the other people in just a little bit in the cast. It's going to get a little crowded in the hangar tonight, but Michael, any difference for you in this particular year as opposed to the last one?
Yes, I would have to absolutely agree with Jamez. After that, that last run, you have your final thoughts about your own performance, and you think about, what could I have done differently, or what could I have portrayed a little bit better to make the audience understand the feelings of my character. And I absolutely, well, let me say I was a little apprehensive about, the stage door having a smaller stage than JPAC previously, but I think with the smaller venue and the intimacy of the interactions between myself and my co-pilots, I think it resonated a lot better this go around.
And again, you're echoing much of what I said and much of what other people had seen and said to me as well. But you don't have to hit me over the head with a brick to understand that. I mean, I could see it and understand it for myself. I don't know, Atlantis, if your mic is on or not. It looks like it might not be on, so you might want to engage your and Brian too. Let's get you guys, Brian, since you were the first. You're sort of coming in. How did it feel to come into this cast that had already been so intimately involved with the work? Was it a little challenging for you?
I think every experience you have is going to have a bit of a challenge, and the challenge that I foresaw was that I had to become a part of a team that was already a team, and I had to be a part of a structure that was already formed. So I had to find my edge, and edge in the sense of I had to find my edge to cut through, and also my edge to find my place on the structure, right? So that was the challenge. And what happened was that it wasn't just me. I was thinking I had to, but it really was Atlantis and Michael and Jamez, everyone in the cast, Miss Tommye as well, Miss T, helping me to form. Like, it wasn't me coming in something; it was us all forming ourselves into something new. So that was the whole process.
Uh-huh. Atlantis, did you take to him right away, or did it take a little time for you to catch up and appreciate him for the good things he brought to the role?
I feel like I kind of took to Brian right away as he stepped into the role of Oscar, because he really did bring something different out of Oscar in his own way. He had a very different approach, and that for me, for Jay Allen as well as the other characters, we kind of grew based on what we had done already, but kind of furthering all of our characters. And Brian, he really brought a new element in that we really got to, play with and see how it formulated and touched each and every character, And of course, with the stage being smaller and a more intimate audience, I feel like it really made the show just so much more intense, and just being on that wave with everybody.
Well, I think it did come across. All right, so we pretty much have all the pilots in the room and Miss T, and now I'm going to ask everybody. I made a furlong too far today. Now, what is a furlong too far? It's similar to a dark and stormy, except it's not dark rum. It's light rum, and it's your beer, and basically you just put it together. So that's what I was going to do, a flying squadron, because I thought that would be an honor of you guys. But the flying squadron requires Pepsi, and I don't drink Pepsi. So there you go. That was that. Miss T, what did you bring into the room? And if you tell me you brought tea, and I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed.
Well, I have to tell you, I brought both. I'm a tequila drinker,
Good for
so
you.
I have that. But of course, I have my ginger root tea,
All right,
which has kept my cast healthy.
Yes.
Michael, what did you have for us tonight? So.
This is always my drink of choice. This is Remy Martin and Grand Marnier. Some people call it a beautiful.
Now that is interesting, Remy Martin and Grand Marnier. So you got the orange liqueur and the cognac going.
Yes,
there.
yes.
Oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to try one of those.
Definitely.
Atlantis, did you bring something in that's potent or not potent?
Just water.
All right, that's okay. I don't want to corrupt the young here, Miss T. You know how it is. Brian, how about you?
I'm so happy to be going after Atlantis, because I thought I was going to bring something very uncool, but I have orange cream sparkling water. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
Well, let me see if I can bring. Again, we can bring up to 10 people in the room. I'm going to bring in some of the other actors now, and the first one I want to bring in was some wonderful actor, and I just wish that he had enough military training to carry off this role. He really needs a lot more military training. Michael Smith, how many years did you lead the Marine Band? How many years?
I did 32 years in the Marine Corps.
32 years. I mean, I only wish you had more military service, to bring with it to that. But you were very, very good last year and this year. Matter of fact, I think, again, because of the intimacy, I think that your character really came off a lot stronger, and you kind of felt some of what might have been conceived as perhaps a little bit of prejudice there coming off of him. But I know he does it because he really does not want to subject those pilots who are not trained properly to be killed in action, and that what he's doing is sending the best people up, right?
No.
That's not what he's doing.
Is he trying to just corrupt them?
His job is to make them fail.
Yeah. 60. What was it? 61%.
68.
68%.
69% was his 69% washout rate was his last group. But he was not put there to train them. That's the billet he's in. But he was put there specifically to wash as many out of the program as he can. When FDR signed the bill into law that allowed African Americans to serve in the military, each of the services brought them up. But into the flying program, there's this white general's referenced a few times. But basically, the general's take was we have to allow them in the program, but that doesn't mean they have to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And O'Hurley was brought in with the job of failing. But with this particular group, as hard as every tactic he comes up to try and undermine them, it just makes them stronger,
right,
and more tight. And in the end, you see O'Hurley's he's a racist. He was told to wash them out, but after they graduate and go on to Europe and do the amazing things, because he still reads his paper, that's why he comes around in the end, and accepts them for what they did do. And he's a little bit humbled for what he tried to undermine them to, but he becomes educated.
Now again, having all that experience in the military, was there anybody you kind of knew personally who you based some of that character on, or were you just taking it off the script?
Well, a lot of the mannerisms in training, with all the services, there's a gruff to training people, and the purpose of that is to break somebody down and build them up so that they cannot be torn down again. Because combat it's hazing. It's not a pleasant environment. But his role in this is to more demoralize them, but it was hard to play a racist, because not one, but I had to go and look at some documentaries of, and as Miss T is brought to our light, there's a difference between a racist and a bigot. A racist is making decisions and opinions based on ignorance. A bigot knows better and still chooses to hate. O'Hurley's a racist, and he comes around. He's educated. He's changed by what they do. But I mean, as far as some of there's a little bit of Arlie Ermy. His drill instructor, I stole a little bit from that.
Well, I think of two movies, that come to mind. Obviously, Top Gun, is one that about basically kind of getting them out of the service, trying to make them fail. And the other one, of course, is An Officer and a Gentleman, which I thought was it's sort of in reverse, because you don't have the officer training, the black pilots. You've got, in that particular case, a black drill sergeant training the white recruits. And it's a little bit in reverse, but it's still the same storyline in a sense. It's still the same reason behind his being there is to make them wash out. And in Top Gun, I guess the same thing, that they want to make Maverick and the rest of those guys fail miserably, and they rise to the occasion. They show that they have a lot more on the ball. That's again, I hope that those of you out there, who are just listening to us, we have two more actors to bring in, so we're going to have a really, really full room.
I'm going to disappear. And then
but I think that all the actors want to congratulate you for all you did, because I know they have a few more shows, but I have to encourage everybody to please go to the National World War II Museum's BB Stage Door Canteen and go check out this show. They have another show on the 9th, which is before Mardi Gras, and then at least two more shows on the 24th and the 25th of February. And there may be some others that will pop up. I know that you all are doing some shows for some of the school children and perhaps some of the senior citizens. But again, it's so important to get this message out. And again, it just happens that Mardi Gras, usually in February, and Black History Month, which is always in February, seem to intersect, and they seem to have an effect upon one another. That we have shows that are interrupted as a result of that. So it's just the life we have here. It's something we have to deal with. But
I will still be listening in. So
thank you.
So
I won't. Hopefully, I don't make any mistakes. You correct me. You correct me if there's anything I said.
Well,
that
I will.
Error. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So put me in the back room, in the green room.
You got it. No problem.
Okay.
All right. Let me bring in our other two actors, and that'll give us a little bit more breathing space. But we're happy to have Miss T in. First off, Sean, what did you bring in the room tonight? Sean Malley, again, you are you're playing one of the bomber pilots, Reynolds, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
I play,
you had played before, right?
I have, yeah. I got the opportunity to play in the same ring as these gentlemen.
and they already showed us what they brought in. What did you bring in tonight to enjoy with us?
Oh, I wish I had something exciting. I'm just drinking a sparkling water. It's cherry lime. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, that's
normally
no
normally I'm like Miss T. I'll drink tequila, but this is it's a water night.
There's Jamez. I see he must have stopped off somewhere to enjoy a libation. You can't drive and drink, so we don't expect you to have anything there.
I have vitamin water.
All right, good for you. Good for you, Sean. Again, like I asked the others, a little different this time. Doing the role, was it in your muscle memory, as it were, as an actor, that you remember the role that you were doing beforehand, or did you bring anything different this year than last?
Yeah, I feel like there's something really interesting about the space that we're doing this, because JPAC is so massive. The last place we did it was so massive, and this is it's more of an intimate setting. I always think of it more of like a mess hall. It makes you really feel like you're in these in this environment. And I mean, to have the opportunity to be with a lot of the same cast and then 2 new ones, it gives you so many more opportunities to kind of explore things you never even thought of. Yeah.
And the other thing too is you were able to use the space effectively, where you were able to get off the stage, go down into the audience, come back up around the other side. You couldn't have done that on JPAS. I mean, that stage is just too big, and you couldn't have gotten into the audience without it requiring a great choreography on Miss T's part to get you all back up on stage and space it out and time it out right. So I think it was great that that you all were able to take on to that. So we've already come to about not quite halfway mark. And I guess a lot of you all were saying, well, gee whiz, how are we going to talk for an hour? Well, guess what? We got another half hour to go. And I'm going to kind of open it up, because I'd like to kind of get an idea. First off, there is another program that people may want to check out as well, called Souls of Valor. And this is essentially a photographic display that is at the National World War II Museum. And I wanted to let people know about it. It's produced by a photographer named Jim Thorns Jr. And I know that one of the Tuskegee Airmen was Sally Ann and Robin Roberts' father. I think he passed a few years ago, but I know that they honor his memory quite a bit. And hopefully, the people who get a chance to see the show will also be able to take this in, because I think it's really important that people have an opportunity to see the work and know some of the historical perspective. Did any of you all see that yet, or not?
Yeah, right outside the door of the theater. Yes, definitely.
And any of that resonate with any of you?
Yes. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person in this meeting right now that can attest to this, but it is definitely an honor to portray these men and the legacy that they created by risking their lives overseas and enduring the hardships of training, as well as the dangers of combat abroad. And it's always a huge gratification to see the reactions of those who not only were adults during that time, but also we come across a lot of airmen's children who come out, or grandchildren that come out to see the show, and it's always a great response. They always enjoy our show, and just being able to tell this story is a huge honor. Not just as an actor, but I'm also an Army veteran myself, so it is definitely something that it's definitely one of my more precious productions that I hold dear to my heart.
And again, I know that we're dealing with a historical record, etc. But in the course of the show, there is a documentary that shows a lot of the Tuskegee Airmen. That was a video, if you will, a film that was done. And I was listening to the narration, and I'm thinking to myself, that voice is very familiar. And I, of course, recognized it right away as one of our nation's presidents. That was Ronald Reagan back when he was still a Democrat. True. So, again, I encourage everybody to see now, and the projections. I think they're a little different than last year, right? I know Ms. T said something about the person who did the projections but I think they were very effective. I mean, that you've got that big, massive screen behind you. And I wanted to show some of the pictures. That one of the things I hadn't had a chance to do yet. So let me go ahead and throw some of the pictures up. So those of you who haven't seen any of these, obviously this is a promotional piece about the Tuskegee Airmen, but there in the back is that classic red tail. If you look very closely, that's the red tail, and that was sort of their, if you will, logo or their
signature.
Their signature that they were known by. And again, this was last year's cast that we had, so we got pretty much Donald Jones Jr. no, and Marcus Roberts no, but everybody else repeated. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, the Tap Griot was out due to illness, but everybody else, he was slated to be in the show, but everybody else repeated. Jamez, Atlantis, Michael, both Michaels, Sean, and again, 2 new actors to go along with that. So now I know that Ms. T took a couple of photos. There you get, a really great opportunity. I mean, these training missions that they went on beforehand, the videos that they had behind that made it appear that they were flying. I mean, really, really well done, well choreographed. And again, I don't know who to thank for that, but it really made you feel like these pilots were flying, and that you actually felt, like flying through the clouds and soaring into the ether, as it were.
Marcus put all that together. Marcus was in the play last year. And there was somebody else, Miss T can answer this better than me, but there was somebody else slated to do the video, and they weren't measuring up. And Marcus kind of stepped forward and says, I know how to do this. So Marcus, while he was rehearsing and being in the show, was working on the videos too. Now that we had a year to get ready for this one, he had more time. Well, he was the dedicated video guy this year. He had more time and to gather what needed to be put in the video. And of course, after doing the show, he knew what needed to be in there to help create that picture. Because last year, a lot of times when they were in the air, it was just clouds going by. But this time when you're doing the flight, you actually see the ground behind you, see the runway. It really puts you in that moment.
It's almost like one of the trainers that they train in, the pilots for real, that you really felt like you were flying the plane, and the choreography that you had, with the chairs moving up and down, and emulating flying and soaring and coming back down to earth to land, were beautifully done. Again,
last year we relied on the willing suspension of disbelief a lot. This year we had a little bit of help.
Nicely put. And I don't know, Miss T, you don't have to say, if you anything, you send me a private chat. But again, Marcus was the guy, right? He was the go-to guy.
Marcus was indeed the go-to guy, and even though he's in Florida now, we still relied on him, and he did everything remotely for us to try to pull us together and to make us really this time seem as if they were really flying and aviators.
Well, you succeeded on all counts as far as I'm concerned. All right, we're going to put you back in the green room then. Let's go back again and take a look. Now, you can see there's some historical pictures behind there of the active Tuskegee Airmen, and up in the front, Jamez, that's you, right? Up in the front. But in terms of your portrayal of Chet Simpkins, Dr. Chet Simpkins, you're actually a much older man at that point, if I'm not mistaken. Correct. And so I would say that if we're talking about his character, I would say he probably is the glue that you know that really holds the piece together, because he has both the perspective of being a recruit and also the perspective of looking back in time and commenting and knowing, as he said, they didn't win all the battles and that they're still fighting battles, you know. And he made that point that you know, you might win one battle and maybe lose another battle along the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Trey put a line in there that for me turned out to be Chet's through line, and it's when he says history is the river that we stand in. Because even as we tell the story, there are so many references to it. Even when you see him stop the fight, like, hey, don't we all wash out if we riot? You know, I can't feel my heart. You know, it's always a flow. Death was so plain. It was like a plumber trying to stop a leak. So now that he is in his old age and he's seeing this river make it to this point, as I'm telling you the story, you're seeing so many areas where that river could have been stopped up, but we kept on going. And I kept on going. So that was something, that opening monologue, that I really see as a through line for the play.
And I'll just say this, that when I saw it, that's one of the lines I wrote down to recall, because I thought it was really an effective line. And he uses the imagery of the river again later on to say sort of like it could also be, you know, a river that can drown you in a sense, and that it can also you know, have impediments. It's not just one that moves you along, but maybe actually, you know, puts you into dangerous currents, etc. So, and again, I think he references that beautifully. And again, I don't know if it was which of the writers was credited with that, but whoever, Trey or Ricardo, did a really good job of carrying that off. You know, again, some of the pictures give us a little bit more of. I took these sort of after the show yesterday, and there you are, and then you see the pilots in their pilot jackets, I guess you'd call it, and there's Michael in the background there as the trainer. But I thought that it was great to get, and you know, it really is esprit de corps, as they like to say, right? It really was, you know, not the reason that Captain O'Hurley appointed Michael's character, of course, as WW, as the squadron leader, was to sort of, I guess you might say, kind of like cause problems, cause sparks, etc. Because he knew he wasn't the best choice for that role, but he put him in charge so that the others would squabble, and that perhaps that would be a way to help drum them out. That once the fighting and the infighting happened, that they would have reason to drum them out or to wash them out of the service. And yet he recognized it. He said esprit de corps, you know, and I would like to say that the esprit de corps that was expressed by all the characters who played the pilots came across beautifully too, because they, despite the impediments put before them, despite the obstacles, they overcame them and they succeeded, and they were brilliant pilots. I know that the record speaks for itself, but they had a phenomenal record in terms of the numbers of planes that were shot down, and the numbers of successful runs that they had as the escorts for B-17 bombers, etc. So again, something to really be proud of. Again, some of the other shots I took yesterday, there the four again out there. And then I brought in a few of the other pilots. I brought in Sean and Noah. Now Noah wasn't able to join us tonight, but he is the 7th member of the cast. And again, we appreciate the fact that he's actually rehearsing for another show. And you know, anytime an actor can rehearse for another show, it's a good excuse. It's for, in my book, it's interesting because I know that he had been involved in that particular show beforehand. I'm not going to mention it now, but apparently he's going to be reprising his role, like you all reprise your role here. He's going to be reprising it later on. So that's fantastic that he's able to get a another opportunity to do the role he did earlier. This is again another shot that I did yesterday on the stage, and I appreciate you all sticking around after the show. Fantastic, job of really translating those parts that, on the printed page, they don't have a lot of substance to them, and yet it's up to the actor to really flesh them out and to really make them human characters that come across on stage with all kinds of concerns. I mean, we learn about one of the pilots who has a child on the way. We learn about another pilot who is WW as an example. I mean, he's sort of a rascal in a sense. I mean, and you've got Chet, who's sort of like trying to do whatever he can to keep everybody together. So there's a lot of different stories that are in the show, and but they all tend to tell in one way or another the story of the Tuskegee Airmen and the great contribution they made to the war effort. Again, I don't know whether or not this will ever show, again next year at the World War II Museum, but it seems to me that it's a really good fit. And if you all keep your Februaries and maybe your Januaries for rehearsal time open, I have a real good feeling that you'll maybe have another year or so to take this out and bring it out to people who have not yet been exposed, because I really think it's an important work. And I know that most everybody who's seen it this last iteration this weekend when it opened last Friday have been just really trumpeting its charms and all the many things that have been done to improve it from last year. And again, I don't want anybody from JPAS to get mad at me. It was a brilliant production last year too. It's just that this production has a little bit more, and it's different. I mean, it's also let's face it, as Tommye said, the tap griot, who is an important part of telling the story of the overall arc of the story, was absent. And as I mentioned, you all probably heard me. It to me concentrated the story of the airmen much more effectively by not having to be distracted, in a sense, by history. And again, it's all part of history, but I think it took away a little bit last time. It's probably intended to do that to make people more aware. But I don't think that we lost anything by that. And if anything, that concentration of them on stage was fabulous. Okay, I hate to call the elephant in the room, but there's one dance sequence that you all do, and if anybody has not seen this in that space, it was just phenomenal. And I don't, how long do you go? Because I mean, all those moves are typed. And how long did it take for you all to get that down? Because some of put you in your paces. But it was fabulous. Okay, who wants to talk? Who wants to speak about that? Brian?
Oh, me? Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience in doing this, because you approach it. You had never had it before, right? So
yeah, well, I can tell you, I showed up to the first rehearsal, the very first show, as a new guy, and we get to that part, and everyone gets up and starts doing it, and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do it too? It's not gonna happen. Like, how? And it was one of the things that took a lot of work for me to get. I am not a dancer, but my co-stars, my brothers also said they weren't dancers and they learned it. So it was constant encouragement. I appreciate just all the help that I got to get it done. I did not think I was going to be able to do it. And I wound up, I don't know if I do it, but I do it. So
and again, in fairness, the person you replaced was Donald, right? Donald Jones Jr.
Yes.
And Donald Jones Jr. is a choreographer.
Yeah, he did express that to me, and I was like, well, no pressure, huh? No pressure at all. But
Yeah.
my brothers were so helpful, just making sure that they didn't leave me behind. And and I think that if I'm not great at it. I think what does show is the brotherhood, and that's what the piece. That's how it was made this go round for me. It was a true act of sticking with me. Me and Atlantis did it constantly behind stage. Um, Michael making sure that I had just like really like being my big brother in this and making sure that look, you gotta do like this, do like this. You know, Jamez always being like the laughter. He doesn't think I laugh at him, but I laugh all he doesn't think I make up. He doesn't think he makes me laugh, but he does. And even like during the show, I still get like anxious. And when I turn to him, he's making the silliest faces and it brings me back to center, you know.
So I'm going to ask Jamez, did it come easily to you? Did you remember? Was it muscle memory there? You knew all the moves, or did it take a little bit of rehearsal to come back?
It took a little bit of rehearsal. It took watching videos. It took everything. And I have to say, Donald, in the midst of his Color Purple schedule, came in and worked with us again.
Oh,
so shout out to him for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I gotta say that gives him a little bit more, in my book in terms of his dedication to the craft. That's wonderful, and I'm sure Ms. T appreciated that as well. And Michael Forrest, did you also kind of feel like the dancing was going to come back, or did it take a little bit of time?
It took a little bit of time. You know, I always I told the rest of my castmates, hey, I'm the best dancer you will ever see with 2 left feet. But you know, with a bit of repetition, and you know, once you have once we had a bit of a feel to the routine again, it became fun. And you know, gracing the stage with these gentlemen and getting the step down to where it is, you know, and hearing the crowd reactions to, you know, what we do on stage, and people who have been to college or seen, you know, any kind of step show in their lifetime, they really enjoy it, whether they're young or older. Everyone loved it. Everyone loves it, and the camaraderie we shared during the scene is what was special to me for that scene.
Atlantis, I'd like to just get an idea. How long did it take for you to like feel like, hey, I got this?
You know, I'll be honest. You know, that step scene is honestly my favorite part of the show, and everything kind of leading up to it. Man, I love doing that with these guys. Man, it's not so much about the moves sometimes, and it really is kind of like dancing and that brotherhood. So when we just get to step, and I don't know, I just get to stepping with them, and it feels great, man.
Well, it looks great too. I mean, I have to tell you, if nothing else, that contribution from Donald Jones Jr. and your work on stage carries off beautifully. And again, it gives the essence of the fact that they are all commonly bound together, and they're going through this experience together as brothers in arms, as it were. And I hate to borrow from the film and from the book, etc., but you know, essentially that's what you all are. You all are being proved in a crucible, of war, and the essence of what you're having to go through is trying you as pilots and trying to make sure that you're able to achieve the task that's being given to you, and that if you're not able to cut the mustard, as it were, that they're going to get somebody else to do that, because the war effort is much more important than whether or not somebody's feelings get hurt. Somebody, doesn't get to achieve their dreams. But this story has so much to say. I mean, I think to youngsters it has a lot to say, but it also, I think, should say something to people who maybe were, in my case, lived or were born after the war, because I never actually lived through World War II, but I was around afterwards and read a lot about it, and was not happy to find out about it, after the fact. And from the standpoint of what we were fighting for was essentially, the survival of our democracy. And that's why to have that National World War II Museum here, is such an important monument to what we went through as an American people. And again, it was a land of equality and a land of inequality. that's what this show shows, is that the land of the free was not necessarily free for everybody. And, it was an opportunity for the home of the brave to exercise their courage and to show, what they were made of. And that is part of what the World War II Museum is all about, showing that story and letting people know about it, that we're all Americans, all fighting for a common cause. We sometimes get divided by politics. We sometimes get divided by religion. In this particular case, there wasn't anything to divide us. We were all of one mind and one great effort to defeat what essentially was, the biggest enemy that we ever challenged, that ever challenged us in our country's lifetime. And again, yes, I know people can go back and talk about, what happened during the Civil War period, but that was really something from within as opposed to from without. Challenge was us becoming, rather than having a challenge from without and threatening our borders and threatening our independence. So it was a little bit different. Sean, we haven't heard from you much lately, so I wanted to go back to you. Did you feel left out, that you weren't able to take part in the dance steps too, or?
I was dancing backstage with them. I was with them through the entire process. I wasn't on stage with them, but I was backstage dancing with them. So I was that's one of the things I really love about this cast and this show, is that I think the last time I spoke on here, Alan, with all of these guys, is I was really nervous. I was kind of unsure, because I was like, this is going to be a tough show. And coming back with it felt literally like coming home. And if these guys are like my family, and you know what, and I really love doing this show with them. And like I said, I was dancing backstage with them.
Well, and again, I assume that one of the things you probably felt too was that you were part of them, especially on the last part of the show where they're actually protecting you as a bomber, and you come around. It's kind of interesting. Now, I have a question about the script. The part about the writing the fear and throwing it in the fire. That's actually in the script. That wasn't something that was written, because it does have a connection to New Orleans, which I found very interesting. And maybe Michael or either one of the Michaels, do you know anything about that? Did you read into that a little bit more?
I actually had a nice sit down with my grandmother during the first run of this production about that scene, and she actually confirmed that was somewhat of a superstition when she was growing up, and it was something that her mother taught her. So when my grandmother seen me do it on stage, it brought back a lot of memories for her. And it's always the reaction from mothers from New Orleans when I give that line. I'm from Chicago, but my mama from New Orleans. You always get one cat call, all right, something of that instance.
And just to kind of explain it, basically, the pilots are being told that the next day they're going to be bombing Berlin,
right?
And so far
Which
they've
was
been
a real
bombing
mission.
this place, and they've been bombing other places, but it's been a little bit lighter, if you will, traffic in the air. Now they're going right to the heart of Germany, and they're going to be bombing what essentially is the heartland of the Nazis, etc. And they are very fearful. I mean, they come into terms, and what it's suggested is that they write their fear down, write it down on a sheet of paper and put it in the fire, and then the fire destroys it, and then hopefully their fears also disappear.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
that makes them realize that they're facing their fears, and that they're hopefully superstitious or whatever, that it helps them to take on that challenge. And so it's really interesting. They mentioned New Orleans, and they mentioned, I think, hoodoo instead of voodoo, which I thought was kind of interesting too, but that's okay. And again, it has a lot of different things that we can all take. There's certain aspects of each of the different pilots. Some are brash, some are timid. Some are doing it, the motivation. Some are doing this, for their father, so he can be proud. and others are doing it, because they want to fly. I think the overwhelming aspect of all of these guys is that not only do they want to defeat the Nazis, but they want to be able to have an opportunity, a real opportunity, to be right up with everybody else and fly planes, which they were never given that opportunity, and basically based on race, and that was the reasoning behind it. So I was so happy to see it last year, so happy to see it this year, and again, I urge anybody who has an opportunity, and this show will actually be archived. We'll have it on YouTube. We'll have it on our NOLA Theatre Folk Facebook group and the theatrecriticism.com Facebook page, not the theatrecriticism.com page itself, because that's where the reviews are done. But hopefully, and I have to tell you that I apologize. It's like with the Color Purple. I wanted to write a review for Color Purple, but between the New York trip that I took, where I had to go review a couple of shows on Broadway, and getting involved with the Mardi Gras, cruise that I am, it's very difficult for me to find time to do the things that I do and go see shows and write those reviews. But I do, thank God for stepping out. I am able to go on TV and tell people about what I've seen. And that's a real helpful aspect to what I do, because I feel like even if I'm not able to write up something and something deserves it, Color Purple really deserved for me to write something up, but I just ran out of time. If they would put on a show any other month in January or February, I could get away with it. But it's really my busy time of year, and unfortunately, the work that I do is as a writer for the manuscripts for the balls. And I mean, right now, I'm at the roller. I'm about to hit the top of the roller coaster and come roaring down until Ash Wednesday. So there's a lot of street parades that I call. If you ever come to Gallier Hall, look me up, because I'll be there talking probably. So just as we wrap things up, I'd just like everybody to have an opportunity to say a couple of words, to anybody who might be thinking about it. I'm going to go around the room real quick. Just tell me what you think people should take away from this show. And I'll start with Michael Forrest and let him go, and we'll go to Brian after him, and then to Sean. But what you want people to know most about this show, so that they have the opportunity to learn a little bit more that we haven't talked about so far tonight.
I just what I want for most people to take away from this show is the legacy that these men left behind. Even though there's not many of the airmen that are still around, the legacy that they left, I really want it to be eternal. The things that they did, there were a lot of. It's a true fact that a lot of white pilots were afraid to do a lot of the missions that they flew on, and it was because of that they got to fly in certain missions in Europe. And the recognition that they are getting now is it's amazing. And I like for people to really take away the fact that despite the different backgrounds that each pilot comes from, the way we gel together through training and coming together, even though we have our differences, we come together to band together as brothers. And the brotherhood and the fraternity of being not only veterans but pilots and flying into those missions, it's important to see.
All right, Youngin, what about you, Brian?
Sorry about that.
I think that this play provides a very unique experience for the World War II Museum, for the patrons of it. When you walk through the museum, you are given so much history that you may not be able to give context to, because you're looking at pictures and you're looking at videos that may be in the midst of the video when you step to them. And when you come to see our show, you're seeing living history, and you're able to make a really deep connection, not only to the history, but to possible characters within that history. And yeah, I mean, that is just an added bonus to your experience of wanting to learn more knowledge, wanting to connect, and being a part of the museum.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Sean, anything to add?
Yes. I think whenever we think of history, we think of it as old. And I think the way this is written and the way it's put on, it's very youthful. It's very entertaining. But it subjects you to things that you're going to be uncomfortable with, and that's important because that's how we get better and that's how we learn.
Very well said. Michael Smith.
I think there's something really unique about where we're doing the production this year in the World War II Museum is because if you see the show, or if you don't, when you go out of the theater and you walk down to the Freedom Pavilion and look up, there's a B-17 hanging from the ceiling. And if you look right next to it, tucked up next to it is a P-51 Mustang. But it's not just any P-51 Mustang. It is a Mustang with the red tail of the 332nd Squadron. And it's the only Mustang in the building.
Wow.
I just think it's but once you see this play and you know what you're looking, if you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what you see. But there's only one Mustang in the building, and it is a red tail tucked right up next to the B-17s that they protected.
Atlantis, closing thoughts?
I think, obviously doing this in the World War II Museum is such a huge opportunity. And, seeing this show, one of the things that kind of strikes out to me is about seeing all these African-American people who come together from different places, very, very different places all over the country and some out of the country. And they all have this one ambition to fly. And seeing what that means to each one of them is very important, and it kind of invokes something new, something very youthful that I think a lot of people can connect with.
And we go finally to Jamez. You got to put your microphone on, because there you go. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you're the glue, like I said. So,
Yeah. This play. I started taking flight lessons when I got the news I was able to audition for this play. And something about the P-51 that I heard, because when I talked to my instructor, I was like, do we have anything that can mimic a P-51? They're like, no, but I'll get you in the most sensitive thing that we have. But that was the thing. These men trained in like hand-me-down planes from like World War I. Yeah. And then they were given this P-51 that was so sensitive. And when we say drop tank, switch the guns, and you go into fight mode, it is a different experience. So what I would say, this play compared to last year, it's the P-51 version. We've dropped some tanks, we're switching the guns, and we take the audience on this flight with us. And there's a quote from a Tuskegee Airman that I love. He says, excellence overcomes obstacles. So excellence was our standard. And when you watch this play, you get to see that we don't portray any of the fighters, any of the Tuskegee Airmen as good guys or bad guys. We are humans. Right. And you get to see them go through that and the effects that war has on these men. So I think with watching that, you can't help but go through the museum a second time and leave away with a higher appreciation for what these men offered in World War II.
Well, I do appreciate every one of you being with me tonight. And I know some of you were on an earlier broadcast a year ago. Again, I want to thank y'all for being back again. It's a very special show. We've gone a little bit over time, but I think it's worth the reason is I'm sure people will forgive us. Again, Ms. T, I thank you for being with us earlier. I'm going to ask you all just to stick around a little bit, and then I'll close out. But again, I appreciate everybody being here. I urge everybody to go see Fly, because it's only going to be on a few more weeks, 24th and the 25th of February, the last two shows that I know of, but they may have some other ones, and then we'll find out about that. Miss T, I appreciate you being with us again. Thank you for directing this wonderful piece 2 years in a row, and maybe we'll go for 3. Stick around. I'm going to ask everybody to wait while I say goodnight. And again, my name is Alan Smason. Again, my pleasure to be with you tonight on NOLA Theatre Talk. We hope that you enjoyed this. And if you need to go back and check this particular broadcast out, you can see it on the NOLA Theatre Folk Facebook group, on the theatrecriticism.com Facebook page, and also on my own YouTube channel. All of it's archived there. And as always, I will see you at the theater.